So the last set of muscles we're going to look at are mostly the neck muscles, the muscles needed for swallowing, but then a couple of other additional muscles that I'll show you on the next slide. So we're going to think about swallowing as an act that happens to put food from the mouth into the pharynx and then eventually from the pharynx into the esophagus and then down towards the stomach. So in order to do this, yes, you need tongue muscles. So all those muscles of the tongue that help us manipulate food in the mouth. And then we're also going to remember these tongue muscles help us move our tongue for speech as well. The muscles that are required for swallowing are basically found around the pharynx and associated also with the larynx. So the pharynx is the common passageway for both food and air, and then the larynx is the tube in front where air goes, and the esophagus is the tube in the back where food essentially goes. These swallowing muscles are innervated by the cervical plexus for the most part, but there are some muscles that are innervated by cranial nerves. Some of these muscles you could definitely see on the models in class, and you needed to know them, and some of them I had to take pictures of models from my other class in order for you to see those muscles. So that means you have to know like which ones are superficial and which ones are deep. So the muscles that you probably want to pay attention to here that are for swallowing and innervated by cranial nerves are the stylopharyngeus muscle. Stylopharyngeus muscle is going to be innervated by cranial nerve number 9, the glossopharyngeal nerve. And then also you want to take a look at the pharyngeal constrictor muscles. So the pharyngeal constrictor muscles are actually the muscles that help us squeeze the pharynx and move food along towards the esophagus. And those are innervated by cranial nerve number 10, the vagus nerve. Okay. So I think on this picture here, this is stylopharyngeus, but don't quote me on that because normally I don't show anybody where stylopharyngeus is. So we're just going to say that is because it's going from the styloid process towards the pharynx. Okay, so this one is cranial nerve number 9, the glossopharyngeal nerve. And then the vagus nerve is going to innervate 3 pharyngeal constrictors. The superior pharyngeal constrictor goes basically into a common attachment point where the buccinator muscle is. And let me erase that. Remember facial nerve. So the facial nerve was a lighter green color. And the buccinator muscle is a deeper muscle that basically goes from the mandible and maxilla all the way back towards this common attachment point called the raphe. I think it's called the pterygoid raphe, but don't quote me on that. You don't have to know that anyway. And then back behind that is superior pharyngeal constrictor. Innervated by cranial nerve number 10. And then underneath stylopharyngeus here, you should see another muscle that's basically kind of going towards the hyoid, but not quite exactly. This is going to be middle pharyngeal constrictor. And then this last one, the superior pharyngeal constrictor, is a little bit bigger than all of them. Ugh, sorry, that just got way out of hand in terms of like, I don't really have enough room to write everything. I didn't really think about it when I was making my pictures. Okay, so those are all vagus nerve innervation and they're all meant for swallowing. Some of these other muscles underneath here, this is mylohyoid. And then deeper to that is geniohyoid. I'm sorry, I was thinking, actually, I think, no, genioglossus was definitely cranial nerve number 12. Geniohyoid, I'm pretty sure that is the ansa cervicalis, because I remember telling you guys in lecture that let's not worry so much about the innervation for that one. So again, these are muscles that are used for swallowing mostly because they help us lift up the hyoid. And when we lift up the hyoid, the epiglottis flap closes down and food passes over the epiglottis. So it doesn't go into the larynx and it goes into the esophagus back behind. So swallowing muscles require you to push on the gut tube, push on the the pharynx and the esophagus, but also to manipulate the larynx to make sure that you close off the larynx during swallowing at the same time. And then if you're looking at here, this muscle, again, underneath, you have mylohyoid here. And then this is digastric anterior belly. I'm just gonna abbreviate that right there. Those are both innervated by cranial nerve number 5-3, the mandibular nerve. So the same thing on this model, anterior belly, mylohyoid, posterior belly. You see on the back here, like if we make that green, stylohyoid plus the posterior belly of digastric, that's all facial nerve innervation. Okay. So the other muscles that are required for elevating the hyoid is basically geniohyoid. It's going to help us lift up the hyoid. And then you're going to have muscles that are going to pull the hyoid down once the hyoid has been lifted. All of these muscles go underneath the hyoid and they're innervated by the ansa cervicalis. So we're not going to worry so much about their innervation. So I'm not going to make these in a color. But I do want you to be able to figure out which muscle is which. And so like on these models, you should be able to see some of these. And here on this model that I have in another classroom that I teach at, you see that. And then you can kind of see that there's some deeper muscles underneath as well. So this first muscle, this is sternohyoid. So again, sternohyoid. It's going to go from the hyoid all the way down to the sternum and then back behind it, or like just laterally to it, you see that muscle kind of curving that direction. That's omohyoid. So here again, you see omohyoid right there. And then if you cut sternohyoid and omohyoid, what you're going to see is there's a small muscle at the top and a kind of a larger muscle underneath. And this is thyrohyoid. Which is mostly going to pull the hyoid down, but also elevate the larynx. And then this is sternothyroid. So that muscle actually just pulls the thyroid cartilage downward during swallowing. And then on this model, you can see a little peak of thyrohyoid coming out the side, but it's a little hard for you to really point to that and see that muscle in particular. Okay. And then there's other muscles that are found in the neck area. Ooh, I hope I got all those. Let me know if I left something out. I don't think so. Mylohyoid, digastric, geniohyoid. Yeah. So then there's some other muscles in the neck area, and I've totally run out of like colors. So I don't know, maybe do dark blue. These are innervated by cranial nerve number 11, which is the spinal accessory nerve. And they're not meant for swallowing, but they're meant for moving the neck. So you should see this big muscle that's coming like this forward, excuse me. This is sternocleidomastoid. So sternocleidomastoid is going to help us with flexing the necks and then lateral rotation. And then remember this really big muscle here on the back area. This is trapezius. This is also a muscle that helps us extend our neck and is innervated by cranial nerve 12, the spinal accessory nerve. So hopefully I didn't forget any muscles because there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of swallowing muscles, and they're not all innervated by a cranial nerve, but they're still in the neck area. And you have to know them here at the end, maybe you don't have to know their innervation, but you want to go back and understand what they do to help you understand swallowing and how the epiglottis moves up and down. And then there's tongue muscles, right? And muscles of mastication. So basically, we're going to think about this at the end here that hopefully you want to know. Remember number, name, functions of cranial nerves. Oh, where they pass through, if they're sensory, motor, or both. Then you also want to make sure you understand all the eyeball mover muscles, all the facial expression muscles, and then any muscles you need for swallowing. Those muscles for swallowing are often used for speech as well. And then you do have some facial expression muscles that are required for speech too. Things like orbicularis oris, right? The muscle that's going around the mouth to help me open and close my mouth, really close my mouth to make certain speech sounds. Do you have to know in particular which ones they are? Like what noises you make and in contraction of what muscle? No. But you should still know that some of those muscles help you with speech as well.